Hello guys, welcome to GizzyFix. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to treat myself a little bit on this one and take a bit of time to talk about one of my most favourite games of all time, one that left such an impression on me on that fateful day when I first saw it 20 something odd years ago, and that is none other than Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
Now what can I say that hasn't already been said by countless others? Nothing really. What I can talk about is the impact it had on me and the pure fear I felt whilst playing it. For those uninitiated among you, Resident Evil is a game on the original PlayStation, about a crack team of elite police officers investigating murders taking place in the fictional Raccoon Forest. They are known as STARS, Special Tactics and Rescue Squad.
Okay, so this squad is split into two teams, Alpha and Bravo, both made up of various characters of varied skill sets. Some are weapon specialists, some are medics, some are team leads, some are even masters of unlocking.
It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Anyways, without going into too much detail of the characters just yet, Bravo team are the ones who get sent in first. They're the first boots on the ground to investigate these bizarre murders that are taking place in the local area. Bizarre because people are getting eaten.
Soon after deploying, however, Bravo team went silent. Alpha was then stood up and went in to investigate for their sister team. Soon after getting their boots on the ground, they get attacked, and as such we enter the world of survival horror.
Now with the intro out of the way, and more for those who know the game really well, which is most of the planet at this point, let's dig into what made this game so scary.
It's simple. It becomes greater than the sum of its parts. The monsters, which are mostly zombies for the first part of the game, are grotesque distortions of what a human being should be. Bloodied and mutilated yet still alive, still moving and groaning. I guarantee that most of you who have played the game, a lot like I have, know the zombie sounds like the back of your hand. Something awful happened to these once normal people. Isolated and alone, with no way of getting help, they suffered a fate worse than death. Now they hunger for the flesh of others, a single-minded obsession to eat no matter what. And don't even get me started on the hunters or the chimera.
Okay, so maybe not that scary to talk about now, but don't forget this was 1996. The age of the polygon hadn't even really landed yet, like it did with the PlayStation. It was enough to suspend that disbelief, and it was terrifying.
The game was known for utilising pre-rendered backgrounds, which allowed the artists and the developers to create some truly captivating scenery, and in doing so created environments which then took on a character all of their own. From long drawn out corridors to grand dining halls and outdoor areas where all you can hear are the growls of potentially more monsters way off in the distance.
Or at least you'd hope.
Each part of that mansion and the other environments houses something that is a threat, to be feared and scared of, that could end your life within an instant, with the only respite that you can take being small rooms that have the most soothing music of any game soundtrack I have ever heard, and even now it comforts me greatly, but more on that later.
Okay, so I am negating such areas as the lab, the sewer, the guardhouse, deeper areas of the mansion. But the main area of the mansion is the first place we see, and it's the first time we feel that fear and that isolation.
It's the one that cemented that feeling of dread and terror that we were continued to feel throughout the rest of the game. It set the precedent that the remaining time would have to keep, and boy did it set that bar high. And again, just when you start to desensitise a little to the horrors of the Spencer Mansion,
to give its official title,
you then figure out enough of the game's many puzzles to be able to access that new area you've been after for some time. The wooden, creaky guardhouse, the slimy wet sewer, or the cold, stone-clad laboratory at the end of the game, each full with new enemies to be afraid of. It keeps ramping up, and to be fair, I think the pacing is spot on. You're never somewhere long enough to get comfortable. Even the intro film with live actors really hammered home the fact you were playing as real people, not just cartoon characters. Our on-screen personas had a real human face that we had already seen and could always link back to, which only added to the fear.
Now look, I am talking about this from the perspective of a new player in 1996 who's never seen these graphics before and never seen this game before, never really experienced anything like it and never even before heard the term survival horror. So I think it's a little bit unfair to judge it on modern day standards. It's got to be judged against when it first came out. Because don't forget, this is the game that spawned films, books, comics, toys, numerous sequels and spin-offs. So it must have done something right.
As an example, some parts of the Terminator don't look great by today's standards, nor does some parts of Jaws, but in their own time they were absolutely immense. With James Cameron's keen eye for detail and the animatronic fish actually being in the water with the actors, this really dialed into us on a primitive level, and it's just the same with this game.
Now, another misconception I feel is why it was even called Resident Evil in the first place by Capcom, the developers. The common consensus I hear is because it takes place in a residence, i.e. the mansion, which if you go back to my previous point is not actually the case because you have other areas as well. And that's reason enough as why it's called Resident Evil, because it takes place in a residence. This I disagree with.
Now, the original name was Biohazard and was only changed last minute due to copyright issues in the West, and it retains this name in its native homeland of Japan. Resident Evil, I believe, refers to the original name Biohazard, in that it is an evil that takes residence inside human beings. For those who don't know, these monsters are created by the T-virus, a way of reanimating dead human cells and creating monstrosities for weaponization. The only drawback is the patients mutate horrifically, a product of the downright evil research conducted by a malevolent pharmaceutical company, hell-bent on creating biological weapons, that goes by the name Umbrella.
Now, biological weapons exist. They've been used in human conflict for many, many years doing many, very terrible things. And they exist in special high security labs. One of the reasons being to develop medical countermeasures if needed for a particular strain or something down the line.
Now imagine a batch of smallpox being used on a population. It would be awful to say the least. But could we counter that potentially with special CBRN suits to protect us? Could we be given a vaccine? Considering smallpox has been eradicated by the World Health Organization, would this negate the attack fairly efficiently? Now imagine a virus that is spread in a different way, not by air or saliva, but by bite. That is truly terrifying. And imagine it changes the host completely, making them spread it through the need to feed, destabilising a population and rendering such countermeasures as I mentioned before as a suit or vaccine completely and utterly useless.
A vaccine is useless if that person who's infected is trying to kill you before the virus does.
It is this residence of evil that changes a human being into a completely malicious host, a danger to all those around them. Resident Evil taps directly into those themes of good and evil, of corporate greed and the arms market.
Another reason is just the little things in the game. I mean, the camera angles for one.
Remember those pre-rendered backgrounds we spoke about? Essentially, they're just images slapped on the screen, albeit high definition for the time, with the developers then conducting some trickery to make it look like the on-screen character is moving around and becoming smaller or larger depending on where they are in relation to the camera, and even quote-unquote blocking some pixels if the character walks behind something. The best example to see this is in the unfinished Resident Evil 2 version 1.5, where this wasn't actually even completed.
Because the developers essentially started again.
And here's the kicker. This meant they could play with you a little, allow you to enter a room and just hear the enemy. Not see it, you can't see around the corner, but your character may be able to. But unfortunately, they are unable to warn you until it may be too late.
Another was the controls. It was a contentious decision because some people really hate them.
Personally, I never had an issue, and once you're used to it, it really isn't that bad. But this solidity made navigating certain areas and situations, especially when low on health and ammo, just the right amount of imprecise.
Essentially, you control your character in the game via a means of left always being left in relation to where the character is in the game. So if the character is facing you and you push left, they will turn, well, from your perspective, right. Because don't forget, they're facing you, so it's mirrored.
Like an abstraction of the panic you would face in real life having to navigate a life or death situation.
Okay, yeah, I can see why people don't like it, but it makes a lot of sense in the game, and it doesn't actually take that much to get used to.
This fundamentally meant the tension ramped when you didn't know what was round the next corner, and had to face it with tank controls.
Okay, so a not so small inclusion was the music. Resident Evil's music is some of the most unnerving, eerie, unsettling music I've ever heard in any game, or movie for that matter.
And you can see when it is layered on with just a few of the points mentioned previously. What you're left with is a pretty unnerving experience all in all.
It's almost on par with The Shining in terms of the atmosphere it creates. That's the film, The Shining, not the awful TV movie.
This all gets balanced out by some periods of respite, however. For me, it was a particular room. After pushing forward into unknown areas, armed with only a minute sliver of health and just one round left in your pistol, you turn the handle of a new door, not knowing what lies in wait for you. The door loading screen begins, you walk through in game, and then it happens. You hear one of the most soothing musical pieces of any game, the save room. Nothing can get you here. You are completely protected from all the horrors outside this room. And this does something interesting, I feel. By giving you this respite, the developers understand they cannot keep you at 5,000 feet for the whole time. It would either be too much for some players, or it would completely desensitise you. By creating this gap and allowing your heart rate to rest, you enter a relaxed state. Knowing you soon have to return to Horrorville at some point, means the scares are allowed to build back up. Horror directors know this all too well. Allowing you that break means it creates the divide. A simple notion, but an important one.
Resident Evil was a truly groundbreaking game. Extremely well made by a team of hugely talented people and expertly led by Shinji Mikami, who is self-proclaimed to not even really like scary things, which is crazy because he ends up creating one of the scariest games ever made. Maybe that's why.
But what he and his awesome team managed to create was a truly unforgettable experience. Full to the brim of fantastic characters, Barry Burton, Jill Valentine, Chris Redfield, Albert Wesker. I really could go on and on. The game opened its doors and allowed us into this world, where we could safely experience something that hopefully you would never get to live for real. It paved the way for similar games, many sequels and spin-offs.
Some good. Some amazing. And some not so amazing.
And the franchise continued to thrill to this day, lately going from strength to strength with amazing remakes, and the series is without a doubt back on track, after a couple of slip-ups for a little while. And with the 9th instalment, I'm happy to say I am once again thrilled to enter the world of survival horror. Well, there we are, guys. That's all my thoughts on Resident Evil. An incredible game, and I've loved chatting about it. I'd also love to hear your thoughts as well. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, I hope you're doing well, and who knows, maybe I'll see you in the next video. Take care.
I don't know. Have I? Go on. Have I got one in here? It's like it's meant to be.